Hello, dogs and humans. This is Making Bacon Pancakes, a podcast dedicated to watching and analyzing every episode of Adventure Time. This is my first time watching the show, but I do know some things about it, including most of the major character names, many of the songs, and a few of the plot points. So this is not a spoiler-free podcast. You have been warned. This is also not really meant to be a reaction series. It is first and foremost an analysis podcast, with the obvious caveat that my analysis can't factor in anything I don't know yet, so I may come to conclusions that are incomplete or outright wrong, which in my opinion is part of the fun. Without further ado, I invite you to come along with me, because it's time for an adventure. Today's first episode is episode 3, Prisoners of Love. So this episode is basically a spin on the classic trope where a villain kidnaps a princess to make her marry him. Only in this case, Ice King can't decide which princess he wants to marry, so he just keeps kidnapping more and more. What interested me about this episode was how Ice King maintains the illusion for himself that the princesses want to be here. He's not mustache twirling about how the princesses have no choice the way a lot of villains of his type might do. He's instead coercing them into giving the illusion of consent so that he can convince himself they like him and want to stay with him. I actually really like this take on this kind of story because it's a more realistic look at the way male sexual entitlement and sexual violence operates. There are, of course, plenty of instances of forcible sexual violence in the world, but it's even more common for the perpetrator to construct a scenario wherein the victim does not feel comfortable saying no, thus adding a layer of plausible deniability to the situation so that the victim feels like maybe what happened was really their fault after all. Maybe they did consent to it. This episode really lays bare just how untrue that is by making it abundantly clear that the princesses are only claiming they want to stay because Ice King is directly threatening them. This episode also exposes just how pathetic the kind of men who do this are. Ice King's dream about how he wants companionship and why doesn't anyone like him paints him as a pitiable creature indeed. In a way, he is the true prisoner of love here. Not physically caged like the princesses, but mentally imprisoned by his own reckless desire for companionship and unwillingness to change his behavior, which makes him repeat patterns in his life that constantly drive people away. And in the end, he is stuck alone with himself. He is his own jailer. For all his pretensions to being all-powerful and all-charismatic, he is more trapped and afraid and pathetic than any other character we've met so far. And no amount of threatening princesses with sexual violence or trapping dogs in ice cubes will ever change that. Get good, Ice King. Today's second episode is episode 4, Tree Trunks. So there's a couple things going on in this episode. Most obviously, we have the story of Tree Trunks herself and her approach to adventuring, and how it's very different from Finn and Jake's, but how there's value in the way she sees the world nonetheless. It's less that she's a pacifist exactly, and more that she just kind of assumes everyone else is as nice as she is. And obviously, she's not always right, but sometimes she is. The Crystal Guardian, in copying everything you do, treats you exactly the way that you treat it. If you approach it with violence and the intent to dominate, as Finn and Jake do, it will match you blow for blow and overpower you. But if you approach it with friendliness, the way Tree Trunks approaches everything, it will respond in turn, and it will let you eat the apple. Speaking of which, let's talk about that apple. Obviously, if we're talking apples, that calls to mind the Garden of Eden, the apple that gives you forbidden knowledge of good and evil, that permanently changes you once you bite it. And we see that Tree Trunks, too, is changed by biting into the crystal gem apple. We just don't quite know how. The ending of this episode is brilliantly disquieting and ambiguous. Tree Trunks takes a bite out of the apple, then we see her explode, and then we see her wandering through some kind of crystalline world. The end. Leaving us to wonder, is she literally in this crystal place now, or is this sequence merely representative of the change she has undergone? Perhaps the experience of eating the crystal gem apple is so transcendent or has changed her so significantly that she no longer belongs in this world, much like Adam and Eve. Or perhaps her being encased in crystal signifies that the opposite of what we expected to happen has occurred, that the apple has consumed her. We do see that she's smiling. Was eating the apple a good experience, or is she just fooling herself once more? We cannot know. But, well, one must imagine Tree Trunks happy. That's all for today. If you'd like to reach out to me, whether you want to send me hate mail for my opinions about children's cartoons, or you want to appear on the podcast to discuss Adventure Time or another cartoon you like, you can email me at dominoboonchoipod@gmail.com. I also have a Patreon, link in the description below, where you can get videos 2 weeks early, as well as exclusive access to monthly animated movie discussions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.